Why does my Linux kernel keep crashing? Imagine your computer suddenly freezing or shutting down unexpectedly. You might wonder what causes this, especially when it happens repeatedly. The answer often lies in the Linux kernel, the core of your operating system. The Linux kernel manages hardware resources and system processes, making sure everything runs smoothly. When it encounters a serious problem it cannot fix, it triggers a crash called a kernel panic. Many things can lead to these crashes. Hardware failures are a common cause. Faulty RAM, a malfunctioning CPU, or incompatible hardware devices can confuse the kernel. For example, if your RAM has errors, it might cause data corruption that crashes the kernel during operation or startup. Hardware incompatibilities, like unsupported graphics cards or peripherals, can also trigger problems. File system issues are another culprit. The root file system is the main storage area the kernel needs to access during boot. If this file system is corrupted or missing important files like the initial RAM file system or initial RAM disk, the kernel cannot load properly and will panic. These files are essential for starting the system and loading drivers. Kernel modules are pieces of code that extend the kernel's capabilities, especially for hardware support. Sometimes, incompatible or buggy modules can cause instability. If a module does not match the kernel version or is corrupted, it might lead to crashes. This is often seen after installing new hardware or updating drivers. Software bugs or misconfigurations also play a role. Errors in the kernel code itself or improper kernel compilation, especially when building a custom kernel, can lead to crashes. If the initial process that starts user space fails to launch, the kernel will panic because the system cannot continue. Recent updates or patches can sometimes cause issues too. Installing a new kernel version or security patch without updating related files like the initial RAM file system can lead to conflicts. Sometimes, bugs introduced in patches or modules cause instability. To fix these problems, start by rebooting and trying an older, stable kernel version. Check your hardware health with memory tests and verify connected devices are supported. Make sure the initial RAM file system is correctly generated for your current kernel. Review system logs 4 error messages pointing to problematic modules or drivers. If you use a custom kernel, double-check its configuration and installation steps. Many Linux distributions offer rescue modes to repair or reinstall kernel components if needed. Understanding the Linux kernel's role helps explain why crashes happen. It is responsible for managing hardware and system resources securely and efficiently. When it crashes, it shows how complex this task is. Compatibility between hardware, kernel code, and system configuration is key. Unlike some operating systems that handle crashes differently, Linux uses a kernel panic as a protective measure. Regular maintenance, updates, and hardware checks can help prevent these crashes and keep your system running smoothly.